What's up? What's happening? What's happening? I'm Dr. Thunder. This is Case Closed. Case Closed. The highest level conversation on the most relevant topics in this space. And you caught us on an interesting topic this week. Interesting topic. Yeah, we're talking about Fani Willis. That's right. What you talking about, Willis? And yes, this is when keeping it real goes wrong. Shout out to Dave Chappelle. Oh, goodness gracious. This is going to be a good one. Thanks for coming by. 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Sundays. This is the place to be. Either my channel or Ike's channel. And how many years have we been doing this show? It's got to be at least 3 years now. Maybe it's more than that. But we're getting it in. Today's show will feature Kaiserian Empire, LAR movement, and of course moderated by Ike Ogiamian. And we are going to discuss this foolishness going on. Like the video, like, share, comment, subscribe, become a channel member where you'll get access to all archived videos, support black male media, support independent media, super chats enabled, super thanks for the replay gang, Cash App, Venmo, PayPal, Dr. Thunder Music, all one word. Spell out the word doctor. Spell out the word doctor. And if you'd like to feed me sandwiches, Cash App. Please hit that Cash App. All right. Does Fani Willis's relationship and the associated improprieties with DA Nathan Wade provide sufficient grounds for disqualifying her from following through with the Trump prosecution? And Fani Willis, did she represent herself well on the stand? Talking about stuff like, any given day from 500 to 15,000 being in the pillowcase, that she's sleeping on. And, in this court case, referring to $1,000 as a G. And I guess there's rumors that she had her dress inside out, because there's a suspicious looking tag on the front, and any number of other things. I mean, even for the fact that this woman used this as an opportunity to mention that apparatus of the said guilty party with respect to adulterous behaviors apparently don't work. Yeah. This is a really interesting one for someone as educated and in as high position as she is. And we've talked about this tangle of pathology and how in the black community, in order to keep it real, you got to talk about stuff like a G on the stand. You have to use the colloquial language from the street. And class distinctions be damned. You ought to be able to communicate the same way as if you were talking to Pookie on the corner. So this is a strange circumstance, but in another sense, it's not that strange, is it? It seems to be sort of maybe proving certain things that we kind of already knew were happening. Another example of that, based on her conduct, is Fani Willis well qualified to be in her prominent position? What does her conduct during the hearing say about class in the black community? You know, at one point in time, this woman, with no uncertain terms, spoke pretty candidly about policy that she had that she would not sleep with, about who she would sleep with and not sleep with. Is that the kind of stuff that I don't know. Is that the sort of topics that we want to be discussed from someone that is prosecuting a former president of the United States? I just don't know. I can't think of a time in history when that's been the case. And not only that, but 3 black women over on MSNBC, one of which with their divestment wig on. I'm sorry. I think I might have coined that term, divestment wig. But it refers to hair that's does not grow naturally out of a black woman's head. And especially in the color of it and in the straight nature of it. This woman with her blonde divestment wig talked about how, I think it was either her or one of the others, talked about how Fani Willis was, what's the new expression? Standing on business. Who's the audience? Who's watching MSNBC? Why are you saying standing on business? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But anything to sort of not have to sort of take account for something that's obviously looks really bad. It obviously looks bad. What does her conduct during the hearing say about class in the black community? Why is there a reluctance to practice class separation in the black community? Is the spirit of striving and rising above a threat to black culture? You know, it's pretty easy to lose your black card. Just speak with proper English. And, it's a slippery slope. Be careful with that. Why are all blacks saddled with the responsibility of answering for the lowest among them? You know, I was thinking about this. It's as if the Democrats are so scared. They're so desperate. Are they actually recruiting the 304 vote? Is the 304 vote, is that the critical vote now? The Pookie in 304 vote? Those are the votes. See, those are the critical votes that are needed to win. When you consider stuff like get your booty to the poll, and see what's happening here. Get your booty to the poll and no voting, no, can't even say the word because it sounds like the other word that they're. This is just crazy. Or even this idea of attempting to weaponize sexual intimacy amongst people in relationships. Like, if you don't vote the way we want you to vote, then you can't have none. And all of this kind of stuff. Is this the way that you talk to black people? This is it never surprises me. And I'm sorry, it never ceases to amaze me. That's what I mean to say. I'm not surprised. I'm just disappointed. And I'm disappointed that so many of us, so many black folks, let this stuff go. We just allow this stuff to happen. We allow them to talk to us like this. We allow them to put somebody in such a prominent position that would represent us in such a reprehensible manner. And then we get on national news and talk about how we're proud of her and how she was standing on business. I'm not sure if there was a D when she said business. Business. She might have said standing on business. This is totally ridiculous. And people wonder why there is such criticism of a lot of these normalized ratchet behaviors in the black community. It's because there doesn't seem to be any difference. Up and down. Class. It doesn't seem to be any difference. How can individuals resist the gravitational pull of the low-class black hole? Well, we'll be discussing this and much more today on Case Closed. Let's go. Warning: some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. Like, share, comment, subscribe, become a channel member where you'll get access to all archived videos. Support Black Male Media, support independent media, super chats enabled, super thanks for the replay gang. Cash App, Venmo, PayPal, Dr. Thunder Music, all one word, spell out the word doctor. And if you'd like to feed me sandwiches, hit the Cash App Sandwich Gang. And yes, I'm Dr. Thunder. This is Case Closed, the highest level conversation on the most relevant topics in this space. And so without further ado, what you talking about, Willis? When keeping it real goes wrong.
Word 'em up, word 'em up, word 'em up. Yes, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Still getting my act together over here. Welcome, 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 ladies and gentlemen. Speaking of vernacular and colloquialisms, maybe you need to add pause after you say, and if you want to feed me sandwiches, pause, right? Because I think that'll add a little bit. So keeping it real, keeping it real. So Trump kept it real, ended up getting hit with a whole bunch of charges, including this particular one having to do with defrauding the American voter. The prosecutor in question, Fani Willis, you've heard, I'm sure. And also you heard Dr. Thunder's summary, synopsis, and what have you there. Now, Trump's trying to beat this, trying to beat it back by, bringing in the I mean, there are many versions of this, right? It always comes up. There's the honey trap with the intelligence agencies. There's the stain on the red dress. There's Mr. Edwards, who was cheating on his wife when she had cancer. And this particular angle is a path well trodden, as we know. And the crux of the defense here, right? The crux that's defense here. In other words, Trump's defense is that this romantic relationship between Fanny and the other district attorney is provides this untenable situation whereby they're financially incentivized to keep the case dragging on, right? That's at least the case there. Now, I just want to just kind of get like a general temperature here. Starting with Kaiser, what do you think about this particular tactic from Trump here? Do you think that just because Fannie is doing some crazy stuff with this other DA, that it provides some kind of sufficient grounds for dismissing this case? Where would the case go, as a matter of fact? Will they not just bring another prosecutor, or do you think they will not be able to find another prosecutor? What is your general feel, everyone, beginning with Kaizo, and then LAR, and then Dr. Thunder, about this particular tactic that the Trump team is using here?
Yeah, so I think the tactic can work under certain circumstances. And I think these circumstances, some of them have actually been met if you look at the deposition in court, in the hearing, right? So let me give the context here. Trump's team are actually saying, we want Willis and her office and, Wade and anyone else involved in this whole case to be removed from this case. Now, this is important because Willis team are actually one of the better attorney teams out there in Georgia. There's a few reasons why this is the case, and why actually by dismissing her and her team, this might actually lead to a win for Trump. So impropriety, right? So if you look at the case, it's quite simple. $650,000 has moved from one office to another office. However, these two people who are receiving / giving the money are in a relationship. They are doing monkey double backflips. Now, because that's the case with monkey double backflips going on, there's money being exchanged, expensive trips around the world in different countries, different places. So this is actually already an ethics violation in a lot of people say. I already agree just by that simple fact. It's already an ethical violation. Now, the main point which Trump's trying to prove now is, did the relationship start before or after the whole case against him? As you mentioned, this case has been taking a long time. It's been brought, the charges were brought a long time ago, but it's not moved forward at all. Why? Because these people are enjoying the money. They're just literally using this as a scheme, as a schema to actually get more money out of this whole case. So yes, I actually do think there's good grounds for the judge to actually remove Willis and her whole associates from this. And if they do that, it's going to be very difficult to find an attorney, a DA that's actually good and being able to prosecute Trump. The few attorney generals, the few district attorneys that they've mentioned in Georgia have stated that actually they will revisit the case, re-look at the charges before moving forward. They don't even necessarily agree with the charges to begin. And specifically for people listening, the charges against Trump are racketeering charges. Over 19 people have been indicted, and 15 of them are still being charged. 14, Willis team managed to get 4 of them to, do a deal.
All right, all right, all right. Yes, you're saying that you think that this will lead to her dismissal. You think this is inappropriate, and you think that after she is dismissed, it'll be difficult to find another prosecutor to move the case
Yeah,
forward. And
because
we'll get into why. I'm sorry, go ahead.
sorry, they couldn't actually. A new district attorney couldn't be from the same office or even the same county. It would have to be somewhere else. And Georgia isn't exactly New York or somewhere with a lot of experienced people. And as I mentioned, this is a racketeering case. So most of these other district attorneys don't actually have the experience in actually bringing forward a successful case in court on RICO cases, because this is very specific. But yeah, go ahead.
Yes, 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 yes. And we'll kind of go around back to why exactly, because you mentioned other people being charged, and there are people, they're obviously, I'm assuming they have witnesses. You are saying that the case is not moving forward, presumably because they're just trying to extend it and keep on, with the notoriety and the money and doing all this kind of stuff, conjecture on your part, let's say, right? That has not been adjudicated, let's say. But all that makes sense. But to the point of other prosecutors not being able to handle this kind of a case, well, you would have to give kudos to her that she was able to at least bring the case forward, have 19 other people. Maybe she's she's at least good at whipping up some stuff, right? You would at least give her that, right, Kaiser?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, she seems competent enough to have got 4 people to actually admit to whatever crime that she cooked up. And obviously, the issue wasn't the admittance, right? It was the fact that she was giving them a plea deal. Because at the end of the day, she wants Trump. This is all against Trump's. And also, one other reason, which I do believe is part of the reason why it's been taking so long to actually prosecute him, is because they wanted to do it right now during the elections, so that, of course, you can kind of look at all the emergent properties that come from that.
Yes, 100%, 100%. And we'll get right to you, LAR here. So this kind of thing of you know, you know, throwing a case at someone, whether they deserve it or not. This is not about whether you deserve the case or not. But in the political realm, throwing a case at you is a well-known tactic, right? And as I agree with Kaiser that the fact that she was able to pull a racketeering kind of bring it forward that case. Now she is the prosecutor, so it's not like there are too many kind of authorities above her in that particular state, you know, district attorney office, right? But the racketeering case is not something that is easy to pull off. Now, LAR, what do you think about Trump here? What do you think in general? I know you might not care at all whether he is doing something, in other words, whether he gets off or not, right? But do you think this is fair game? Do you actually believe that he was defrauding the American people, in terms of the votes and whatnot, January 16th, all that other kind of stuff? You don't have to go too deep into that. You can go into whichever rabbit hole you wish to go into. But the general question is this sufficient grounds to drop the case? Kaiser thinks yes. What do you think about the tactic? What are your thoughts in general, LAR?
They're not going to drop the case because you already had people who pleaded. See, if those people didn't plea, yeah, you could drop the case, but they already pleaded. So guess what? The case is going to go on regardless. That's part of a RICO case. You get people to plead, they turn on the person higher up, and then all of a sudden it doesn't matter if you get rid of the other person, the other prosecutor, you already got the plea is already on paper. So that's the problem. As far as so that case dropping, I doubt it. I doubt it. The other thing about this is just in the sense of Trump, it's not going to stop anything with the election. It's really not. So right now, it was just something to discredit him, and he has a history of doing shady stuff. Everybody in America knows this. Nobody cares. That's the issue. The same thing that Fani Willis is getting in trouble for, he got in trouble for on his presidential campaign. It's the same thing. You know, and guess what? He became president, nobody cared. So for me, she should have been smarter than this. If somebody gives you a case like this, the first thing you should do is make sure you're gonna be clean regardless. Because they're gonna try to find anything on you to discredit the case. That should just be normal practice. But in this whole scenario, and this is just across the board, all you're seeing is how America really works when it comes to politics, and the court system of corporate America. People are just hedonistic, bad-built, shady people trying to get their rocks off. And they're using their positions to do it. That's all. So, is it surprising? Absolutely not. Is it going to change anything? Absolutely not.
So, Dr. Thunder, if I have not completely, do you think? What do you think about what Eliar mentioned here about the hubris? Right. Somehow it on you to be the person to bring forward a case like this, and you don't completely clean up your act. Kind of seems like you just thought you could get away with it, or it's kind of hubristic in a particular way. What do you think was going through your mind, in addition to the general question of what do you think about Trump and his tactics here? And do you think he'll wait and the case will get dropped? Kaizo voted yes. LAR says no because people have already pleaded. What are your thoughts?
I think that he's got to be doing it for a reason, beyond just the case getting dropped or not. As I understand it, they want a different. They want to question anything that was found, and that's why they're going after. That's why they're going after Fani Willis. Now, unfortunately, she's made herself an easy target, and not only made it worse by how she was conducting herself, as far as, with this dude that she appointed in a position under her. And there's an issue with that. Giggity. There's an issue with that. And there's a lot of issues with this. Okay. It looks bad. She's taking advantage of this, of her, the person that she is in charge of at the job. So that's going to look bad. All the trips, all of the, extra money spending, all of the lavish luxurious stuff that she was doing, and then not being able to account for it because she's saying that she's taking cash money, from her, what am I saying? From when she was running for office. I'm forgetting the word, right, for her campaign. And she was just taking that money, bringing it home, cash money. That's why it's part of the reason why she'd have anywhere between $500 and $15,000. And right now she's getting her money back up. She said she's closer to 500 right now, trying to get her money back up. Why would you tell anybody that you have that kind of money up to $15,000 in your home residence? First of all, it's dumb to do that, because now what if somebody wants $15,000? Now they know where they can get it. Right? That's a problem. The optics of it look terrible. This whole thing is dumb. And then, now that's the stuff that she did. Now what's worse is the attitude and the way that she conducted herself on the stand. It's like, man, no humility, no shame about your stuff. Totally great with just admitting stuff and talking any old, colloquial way, leaning all back in the chair, it's so crazy stuff, man. That if y'all don't know what we're talking about at this point, I don't know what's gonna tell you anything. This is clear signals of a lot of the just bad behavior, public behavior that's been complained about and that's been pointed at. She did a lot of those things, including emasculating this dude that she had been seeing. Goodness.
What did she say about him? She said she has options, or I don't know what happened.
No, she said, well, I'm not going to emasculate a black man, but based on the disease or the health issue that he had, it's not even possible for us to be doing the thing that they claimed that we were doing. She just said that his pee-pee don't work on national freaking broadcast. Why does it, so how come that is, no matter what class, if you street corner, if you a broke ninja, if you a rich ninja, how come that is the constant strategy, is to go right after a brother's, I just don't want to say, nobody else does that. Nobody else does that. Nobody else does that. That's all I had.
All right. So, but I'm curious. So there is the inappropriate behavior, and then there is how she carried herself on the stand and continued some other, in an inappropriate way. I'm wondering what just real quick, Dr. Thunder. I wonder what let's say it was Candace Owens. I'm going to trigger LAR by bringing up Candace Owens here. Let's say Candace Owens was the prosecutor. Let's say Candace Owens was the prosecutor, and she was there. She was poised. She had a nice white blouse worn the right way up or whatever, wasn't inside out. And she gave her deposition and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, she did, she was sleeping with people, which people do, by the way. I don't know if anyone has noticed, but people who work together, they tend to do this kind of thing. Okay. It happens.
Yep.
So that happened. Yep. And then she came and she was, she was kind of clean and whatnot. Would this have caught your eye? How would you have viewed it differently?
I think I would, I think if a person, people do wrong stuff, and you put women and men together, working long hours together, and basically isolated from other folks. It's kind of a lonely thing, and you're gonna create more instances of this sort of thing. of people sleeping with coworkers. Okay, I get it. But you can have some shame about it, though. And it seems to me that if Candace ever got caught in something like that, she would have shame about it and she would conduct herself with class. You know, just because you did some dirt, you don't have to appear to be belligerent and defiant and, you know, can't nobody tell me nothing. You don't have to do that. And all that does is make the people that look at you like want to go after you harder. Because, hey, I'm going to make an example out of this one. You know? So, I don't know. I don't think it served her well. I don't think that it served... I just don't know. I just don't know who was supposed to be served. What example was being made that was something that was going to be a net positive by Fani Willis behaving the way that she did on the stand. Okay, she got caught with her hand in the cookie jar. She got caught doing some stuff that at least looked shady. What was the benefit of talking the way that she was talking, using the kind of language that she was using, leaning back, acting like she couldn't be bothered, looking like a straight jerk? Who was being benefited by that? And I just don't see how anyone was positively benefited by that. She wasn't. She even herself wasn't. And you start expanding that to the image of black women. Was that a positive for black women? I can't see in what world how it could be.
Gotcha. So, Kaizo, we've talked about, including with the Harvard case, the case of the Senate hearings, or was it the House? I believe it was the Senate, when the presidents of these institutions went and they presented themselves in public in a particular way, and the questions were asked about whether they deserve the position, will they get kicked out. Um, Votes were taken, bets were placed, and it seems like at least one of them, I don't know what happened to the other, but at least Claudine Gay got kicked out. She kept her $900,000 salary though, but she's no longer the president. She's still at the institution with that sweet salary with less responsibilities. I would take it.
Right.
So, Kaizo, regarding the behavior on the stand that Dr. Thunder highlighted, what do you think about that regarding being a prosecutor, right? Now, there is a whole kind of a thing like, the swashbuckling, kind of crazy, rugged, roguish type of behavior that some people have. Think Anthony Scaramucci, think Trump. Trump's probably the most famous of these types, right? Some can pull it off, some cannot. So it's not just a question, it's not an easy black and white. Do you behave this way or don't you behave that way in terms of deserving your position, right? Elon Musk is very different from Warren Buffett, for example, right? So what do you think about how she carried herself, and does she deserve the position? Overall, I don't think it looked good, even if she was, she didn't play, she didn't pull it off, right? What are your thoughts, Kaizo, regarding that?
Yeah, so great question. Okay, now obviously it's gonna sound like double standards, right? But the thing is this, right? If you are a woman, and especially if you look at the way women carry themselves, you look at Hillary Clinton, powerful woman, don't need to like her or love anything about her, but she generally carries herself with respect. And knowing that kind of powerful position, there is gender dynamics that does play into these things, right? Someone like Trump, yes, he has all of his issues, but at the same time, that is more of the masculine behavior, to be more rugged, like to be more, boyish. So if she's representing herself as a woman in the stand, specifically the black community, the way that she came across, these were, again, if you look at these men that you mentioned, they would behave more on the rough spectrum as the masculine. She's behaving against the feminine, right? All the behaviors that she's doing, she's showing her lack of demeanor during the court hearing, body language, eyebrows. We're talking about, um, the way that she wanted questions clarified, the way that she spoke again about this other guy, Nathan, Mr. Wade over there. All of this kind of just smelt of basically a non-feminine woman, and I don't mean masculine like poised like Hillary Clinton. This is just ratchet behavior. There's no, you can't compare ratchet behavior versus a rough, tumbled man behavior, or even masculine like someone like Hillary Clinton. So this is something that just isn't right. So her behavior now, the question is, does she deserve this position? Or well, look, she's competent enough to have even got the full pleas. But I think there is a difference between being competent as a solicitor versus being competent in a courtroom, where you do have to actually have the right way to actually approach. That is a very, very separate thing. So yes, I think she's competent as a solicitor. She's definitely not competent as a person that actually goes in front of a courtroom. And I think it makes black people look bad generally. And this is probably the only times I agree that there has to be more black men in these positions.
All right, all right, all right. Keeping it real goes wrong when keeping. Yeah, good for kind of pointing out definitely the aspect of there is a card to play if you're a man, and then there's a card to play if you're a woman, and they're different. And even if you're going to be a quote unquote masculine type like Hillary Clinton, you have to actually have the poise and pull it off. You can't be just crazy, right? Like uh well, LAR, I don't know if you saw her testimony. What do you think? You think is grounds to, for her not to be there anymore? I don't know if she'll actually get kicked out, like Claudine Gay got kicked out, for example. But you already mentioned that the case will not be dropped. But just in case, just in terms of her job in general, what do you think about her performance on the stand and how it will affect her position? Does she deserve the position?
I didn't watch it. I saw clips of people making fun of her. Because once I saw what was going on, I'm like, whatever. I seen this before. It's a catch-22. If she would have comported herself better, still be a bad story. But she didn't, so she made it worse. Just in my opinion, you have a few dynamics that work together. One, when you have people in the legal system get put on the hot seat, normally they just don't perform well. See, it's good when the pressure's on the clients and the people, but when the pressure's actually on the person who is the lawyers and the judges, they don't really perform well. Their arrogance and egos get in the way. So that's a general thing that happens. Two, since I would say the Trayvon Martin trial, black women haven't looked so good in court, whether it be actual court or court shows. And what I'm saying is, from just somebody you would consider a hood rat all the way up to a judge, and now you can say a district attorney, just have a bad attitude in the courtroom. And it's like you're accustomed to having a bad attitude and you don't shut it off nowhere. That becomes a bigger part. That becomes another part of the problem. And I don't even know how to, trying to tiptoe around this, but the other thing about this is very simple, and I don't understand how you can put yourself in this position, is just part of it is this whole feminism kick, where if the women got in a position, they would act differently than men. And what you're seeing is they behave worse.
Oof.
So it's like, it's a trifecta of stupid, And what I mean is, when I said the Trayvon Martin trial, his friend, just everybody was like, what is this girl doing? But you fast forward a little bit. You remember the judge, what is it, Botham John, who allowed the guy to go hugging people in the court and all that, and her and the lawyer and the cops, and it was like, what are y'all doing? And then you fast forward a little bit, and it was a judge that got arrested. They had to drag her out of court, and it's like, and you see these what they call them, the city girl mayors in different states, just really just acting a fool. And now this, and then when I say the court shows in the middle, you've seen all these little television court shows where black women in particular have just been out of pocket. So it looks like what Dr. Thunder was talking about. It really doesn't matter if you're actually an uneducated, hood rat, or you're a highly educated legal professional. You're going to go into court and act stupid. It's nothing good about this.
Yeah.
I'm done.
So the existence of this phrase, keeping it real, being a real one, LAR, is that part of the problem, LAR? Now, what I mean, that I'm not saying the phrase, but there's obviously a whole lot behind it. You're a real one when you...
So it's a huge difference. See, when people say they keeping it real, and usually that's saying it used to be it was being honest. Now it's just being ignorant with no consequence.
Yeah.
And see, you could keep it real. You could keep it so real that somebody punch you in your mouth. So when you see a person who's just so ignorant or so arrogant that they assume nothing's going to happen to them, they're not keeping it real. They just never got their ass whooped. They think they're above getting their ass whooped. People who kept it real knew I might be honest in this situation and it might go bad. This is not keeping it real. This is keeping it real stupid.
Wu-Tang.
Yeah, it ain't nothing with you gotta be honest at some point. Do you realize, just think about it, if you're talking about like black men, when you see black men in court acting like that, they're probably gonna get life. They're probably gonna get life. They already know, okay? And you've seen brothers act like that and they go 45 years and they go, wait a minute, this is some bullshit. No. They told you to shut up. You didn't hear. This looks dangerous. And I hate to be that way, but it looks dangerous because what you're essentially seeing right now is black women in particular trying to be as white as they can be and realizing that they black when it's too late. She is no different from, what is the stupid dude that wanted to run for president? Vivek. Him and Nikki Haley. Nothing of this stuff exists. Well, use your real name, huh? It's like, how do you not know where this is going to go? It's that part. People have hit the wall of no common sense and they just kept going. She knew this was a bad look because she's a freaking DA.
Yeah. It just looks like defiant, and it's like braggadocious. Like I just got caught doing some really dirty looking stuff, and I'm just going to like rub it in your face that it doesn't matter how bad I look. You still ain't getting me. It's crazy. I mean, she was even on the stand talking about her and this dude that she's having the affair with, right? How they would get in these heated arguments about how he thought that, about what he thought a woman's role was, and how she was defying that, and she was supposed to still bring as much to the table, financially and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, I don't even know in what context could that even come up. Like, what context, what question, as a DA, as a lawyer that knows how to ask questions to sort of box you in, so you have to get to the thing she's asking for. What was the question that was so surgical that it forced her to have to say that? But actually, when you listen to it, it's like she is saying all kinds of stuff that is not necessary. Like most of the stuff that looks bad is a bunch of stuff that she just volunteered to say that is not necessary. Like, when is it necessary to talk about they must not have been doing whatever because the dude's pee-pee don't work? When was that necessary? What question was asked that forced that response? See, that's the thing. That's the thing that I'm amazed at with this is, and somebody said in the chat, and I don't doubt that her performance as a prosecutor, I don't doubt that she is capable of doing the job. But that's not the point. The point is, you were doing some stuff that was shady, even if you were really good at the standing in court aspect, in the research and all of the legal work. You still have some serious character flaws. And this is someone that is running for public office. I just don't know why she would be so flippant and open about sharing a bunch of really super private stuff. Just to make it seem like this dude is worse. I think it's obvious that she don't like that dude. The dude that she was having the affair with, she hates this dude now.
No. If all else fails, blame a black man. It just doesn't come off well right now.
I guess. Goodness, man.
And yes, Kaizo did point out that including in this case, being able to get the snitches and the plead and the racketeering case, bring it forward, does take a certain kind of skill. You can even imagine the kind of person she is that would be good behind the scenes with twisting certain arms and putting tapes in certain places and getting certain people to do certain things, right? You can imagine that, right? But why then come forward and carry yourself in this kind of a crazy manner? Like, all you have to do is go there, and this is not like the first time someone has ever been put on the spot, right? This stuff happens all the time, and you happen to be in a profession where this is a part of the gig, where you get put on the spot, put on the stand, your depositions and such. So the game plan for this, you have a whole industry, right, where they train you, including the media training people, right, on how to present yourself in these kinds of situations, right? So forget what you did. That's why I brought up the whole Candace Owens thing. It's like, yeah, okay, so Candace Owens, I don't know, was having an affair with Ben Shapiro or something, and his wife found out, a whole big thing. Yeah, but after all that, you still have to come out and present yourself in a particular way and all that kind of stuff, right? So let's get to, and I don't know if LAR dropped off, right? Or
no, he's coming back. He said he'll be right back. Maybe you just start off with Kaizo.
Okay, Kaizo, let me ask you this. Okay, yeah, let me ask you this, because this is a question about class, right? Within the Black American space. You're not an expert in the Black American space. Neither am I. But I've been hearing things, right? I've been hearing things such as, well, there is no space for the high level striving and being above and beyond the fray, right? It's Jack and Jill or Boulay or whatever. There's this kind of idea of crabs in a bucket, quite literally, spiritually, even, right? Like you cannot see yourself as, you know, being on how dare you're just a black man, right? That kind of thing tends to happen, and this behavior here by her, and she's supposed to be someone that's kind of a upper echelon, someone of prominence, and whether or not her background, irrespective of her background, right? She's displaying this kind of base behavior. The roundabout question I have here, and we're going to open in here, is what does it say about class? What do you see, right, as an outsider regarding class in Black America, where there is no demarcation between the classes, where everyone is supposed to be keeping it real in this particular kind of way? And with Kaizo and then LAR.
Yeah, so great question actually. So I definitely do think that there is definitely a class problem going on here. She's obviously educated. She's qualified enough to do the job that she's been doing, but just because you're intellectually qualified to do something doesn't really go too much on the whole EQ aspect of socialization. Clearly, she's not been socialized properly, and the worst part is she does have a father in her life. At least he exists, right? He was actually took the stand as well. Um, you know, in aims of corroborating her story about cash and money and things like that in the home. So I think this is actually kind of speaking at a greater sort of ratchet. And I want to say this is from things I've seen online, what I've heard from certain people, certain behaviors that you'd see lawyers or any kind of black woman, let's say, dancing on tables in restaurants without having agreements from the owner or the other guests, or coming to Ghana and twerking in front of a slave castle, right? I do think that there is an aspect of a feminine behavior, which is doing things without looking at the consequences, left unhinged to a point whereby it actually has kind of reached the mainstream culture that it's acceptable for black women to do certain things without consequences. So I think what we're dealing with here is it's not even a class of money it's anymore, right? I've seen poor people behave much better and I've seen rich people behave worse. I think right now what we're dealing with is a class of I would say specifically black women who have unbridled bad behavior, and there's no one actually holding them accountable. And each time one of them does something wrong, instead of just having a overwhelming disagreement from the rest of the black women, there is an overwhelming number of support. So yes, there's a difference in class between certain women and the way they carry themselves. Obama's wife carries herself differently, despite feeling that she has all the accolades. Whether you like her or not, that's a whole separate issue. Meanwhile, this kind of woman here carries herself the way that she did. So yes, there should be. I believe there should be a class separation. I don't think we all should just be part of this greater black struggle if it comes at what we're seeing right now and the kind of culture that we promote, or at least not speak against.
Let me go to Dr. Thunder first before I go to LAR here, right? So you highlighted this point earlier while you were talking about the case in general and her behavior, right? So, and I want to ask you, like, why do you think this is the case? Why is there a reluctance to, practice class separation? It seems to be the case that, if you're black, and to speak properly is to be white. To have a book bag is to be white. To practice middle class values, strong family and this, that, and the other, and you save money, you do certain types of things. These boring middle class values, right? Is is uh there's so many things that you could be said against it, right? You just have to go to the right Marxist corner to get all the right kind of vitriol against that kind of a behavior, right? That's the behavior of the dominant society, and it's this and that and the other, and it's stifling. So, in your perspective, now this is a big question. We could just take a slice, but why do you think this is the case? Why did it develop this way, right? One could have several imaginations as to, if you're struggling together, there tends to be this kind of a bonding effect, and anyone that seems to want to differentiate themselves uh, in a natural way, because individuals are not equal in these regards that we're talking about, right? But there seems to be like, whoa, 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 you can't be acting that way. You cannot be having standards. How dare you? You're just a black person, right? Why? Well, what's going on there, Dr. Toner?
In particular, I think that this is sort of weaponized against black men. This idea that doctors are dusty, lawyers are dusty, entrepreneurs are dusty, university professors are dusties, PhDs are dusty. Doesn't matter if you're black, you're dusty. It's that sort of sentiment, and unfortunately, a lot of that sentiment is actually, it's kept alive and stoked in many. It's black women. It's black women. A lot. You hear a lot of this rhetoric coming from black women. If it's black feminists, if it's divestors, and a lot of this sort of toxic sludge has been consumed wholesale in the black community. So this work of keeping us having a sort of low opinion of ourselves, and anyone that is willing to do the extra work and effort to pull themselves out of a particular situation, they're still dusty. You still dusty, you nobody, you still black. Right? And because you're black, you still nobody. You know better than me. You're not better than me. Remember, you still black. Like, what other community does that? What other community tells you because you Asian? You Asian. You Asian just like me. You Asian. Because the cat is successful. Because the person goes and gets an education. Because the person wants to use proper English. Where else does that happen? All of this stuff is it's byproduct of. Initially it comes from slavery, and then after slavery you have efforts to keep us sort of separated from the rest of the rest of society, with segregation and whatnot. But then what happened, which I think really did most of the damage, is this sort of forced integration. And so we stopped sort of investing in ourselves and being forced to have to invest in ourselves. And naturally speaking, the white man's ice is colder. So we start spending our money in other ways and lost almost all of the momentum. And then this unfortunate deal that has been struck between the state and black women, honestly, to incentivize them to be single moms and to do it themselves. All of that stuff, I think, psychologically has done a masterwork on our self-esteem. And I mentioned earlier divestment wigs. Divestment wigs being these multicolored wigs, weave and all this kind of stuff that produces a look that it ain't from the continent. Okay, it's a look that obviously is attempting to imitate European beauty standards, and therefore attempting to attract the gaze of the men of the dominant society. well, if I do certain things to make myself look more like these women from this dominant society, maybe some of the men over there will look at me too. We know that there's this research that suggests that the women of subordinate societies disproportionately favor white men. They and if they can get them or not is a different issue, because men of any particular culture will tend to favor their own women. So you'd have to beat out white women, and then you'd have to beat out number two, which is probably Asians and Latinas. Then, and like this, and I only count marriage. I only count marriage. I don't count you have a baby with this person or you dated this person for a few months. I don't count that. I only count marriage. When you look at marriage, there is it's a small percentage that are actually getting married to white men. I'm talking black women. And so when you see this kind of stuff and this just emasculating this dude and taking it as if it doesn't mean anything, and even in her general posture and stuff as talking about this dude, it's just like, dude. It's like, man. But then to have these women from MSNBC, these 3 black women get on here and actually endorse this woman and actually say, oh, y'all, she's standing on business. She's like this. Oh, she's a strong black woman and all of this kind of stuff. And it's like, dude, do you realize that this is part of the problem with the collective black female image right now? This dominates the issue. People think that black women have attitudes. Black women are tone deaf. Black women are belligerent. Black women will go into, restaurants and twerk and stuff in a restaurant and have no care or concern for anybody else but themselves. This is a collective image, and there's not enough other images. And here's the thing. I don't think that this is necessarily even the majority of black women. I think that there are a lot of loud, ratchet voices that are being selected and propped up in front of the camera. But what made this worse was that you had 3 supposedly reasonable black women on a news organization. They had an opportunity to say, you know what? I don't like that. I think that was, I think she's a good attorney. I think that, everybody has had these issues. It's not just black people that have slept with people at their job. They could have said that, and then they could have said, but I just don't think that this was a professional way to conduct yourself. But for them to feel as though that they had to endorse it, it's just like, come on, man. Come on.
Mm-hmm. That's a good answer. Very clear. Nagone in the chat. He says the class, right? That basically education, the education line pretty much is the line of demarcation of class, and that doesn't mean much anymore within the black community, and hence, your race becomes your class. When you talked about the forced integration, that also brought up something in my mind, which is a very simple kind of mechanical thing. If you're forced to stick together and have an order by yourselves as opposed to integrating, orders tend to stable orders, that is, require hierarchy, right? So you're naturally gonna need to produce because you're gonna need to know whom is better at getting you guys where you need to get to, right, than the other person, right? Hence, There's going to be a hierarchy of values and hierarchy of the people whom possess these virtues that are required for getting to those values. Those things will naturally form. But if you then just get forced integrated into a dominant society where now your race is also your class and it's not the top class, then yes, there is a chance that there to be a perpetuation of whatever type of class dysfunction will continue. But LAR, okay, we're talking about class distinction. You know, this idea of, well, you're black, right? Who do you think you are? Why are you talking that way? Do you think you're better than us? And Dr. Thunder mentioned the aspects, the intersexual aspects of it as well. But even amongst men, right? Even in this space, I've heard people say certain things that come close to that, right? About other men, after, you're just a black man, right? That kind of a thing. Like, so what are your thoughts about that in general, right? What do you think about it? Is it a good thing? Should it be changed? As an individual, how do you go ahead and navigate that space? In other words, kind of demarcate, separate yourself in a certain way while, not getting pulled down or whatever it may be, or while still being a man of the people like yourself, right?
I think what it was is not what it is. And I think what's really going on as of now is a lot of the issues you're seeing about class are really black people from the middle class and upper class. And it's a weird dynamic because it's old school people told you stop trying to be white, which meant if they do degenerate crazy stuff, you're not going to get away with it. But what you're seeing is groups of people who grew up in middle class neighborhoods hang around a lot of white people and they think they got affluenza and they acting a damn fool. And then they turn around and say, I'm really being black, as if, oh, you're supposed to be like a poor black person who's just ignorant all the time. Because they don't really have a real true understanding of poverty in black America and the functionality and the dysfunction of it. It's just now when I'm acting ignorant, I'm really being black. But you never came from an ignorant place. Or you did come from an ignorant place. It was an ignorant middle class place, an ignorant suburban place, but you won't take the brunt of that. So for me, what I've seen for the last decade is people who they don't even have a real stake at the struggles of poverty in black America. They're just making up stuff when they get themselves out of pocket. That's all that's going on at this particular point. Because what you've seen is whether you've seen people who came from the hood who had kids but their parents are still kind of hood because that's how they grew up. But now the kids, I'm gonna really be black. I'm gonna really be hood. No, you're not. You're gonna be really suburban. You're just playing being black and blackface, and you think it's something else. And you have this weird dichotomy because you see black people who I'm not like other black people. I'm a special black person. It's like, oh, here we go. We got the suburban nigga here who think, but he's gonna do all the white suburban things though. But I'm not degenerate for doing that. Oh, okay. When you smoke weed with the white boys, you're not a pothead. But when you smoke weed with the black guys, now you a super thug. It's this weird little dynamic. So now what you're seeing is, not just Fani Ellis, the ladies you saw on the that you were talking about on was it CNN or CB?
MSNBC.
You see that dynamic. You see the dynamic of, oh, I was in a sorority. And it's like, here we go. Now sororities used to be classy ladies. Now sororities is a way to say I'm college hood black now. Sorority fraternity, I'm college hood black now. So it's like, oh, here we're doing it again. So now everything is becoming a smoke and mirror show to blame, quote unquote, poor black people. Like if you look at it, a lot of the big stories that's been going on for the past decade haven't been with poor black folks. They've been with either middle class or upper class black folks. And they wouldn't come around the hood and slum it with the other blacks. That's not their thing. So it's like, now we got an issue. Think about it. It's like it's basically akin to and just use them as a reference. It's like you see Lil Wayne's kids walking around like they hood. You see T.I.'s kids walking around like they hood. You seen Michael Irvin talk about his kids walking around like he's hood. You've seen the Obama's kids like, you know what? I can be super white and party and acting. He's like, no, you can't. Have you not learned a lesson? Your parents haven't told you this already. You've seen this time and time again. You've seen adults, and I'll say it even this way. You've seen black men and women who have when people say you acting white and talking white, you've seen the Carlton-esque kind of people on social media and television getting punked by white people and just sit there with the little screwed up face like, I'm just trying to be a good black person and be civilized and let this person talk to me like they're crazy and I'm going to act like nothing happened. It's like, yo, I've seen people be disrespectful and get disrespected and still try to highlight, I'm not being like the hood blacks. You see, I'm civilized. I'll never respond like that. And it's like, yo, he or she just disrespected the hell out of you. What are you doing? You're not responding at all? At all. So this weird disrespect thing that goes on is becoming a nuisance, because when it comes to blackness and class, now it's all jumbled up. Because now people are just making stuff up as they go. That's why you can get a phrase like woke. Have black people knew where woke came from, and now you got other black people thinking woke is the liberal agenda. It's like, where the fuck are you from? Like, how do these two things correlate? They don't. So you got a black experience, and you know what? Because we got like Ike, Kazo. What I'm saying is, it's the equivalent to if a black American like myself walked up to you and asked you about tribes in Africa and started making references about shit, and you'd be like, "What? No, we're not living in mud huts and trees. What the hell are you talking about?" It's basically that with other black people now. So the class thing is weird.
Got a super chat there, Dr. Thunder?
No, it's not a super chat. It's just somebody telling folks to like, share, and subscribe. It's Bella.
I have a quick follow-up for you there, Eliar. Do you, either you in your personal experience, or do you think that amongst the dynamics that you mentioned here, is there also that dynamic of every black person has to kind of account for the ratchetness? In other words, you can't say, look, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't do that. Why do I have to explain what the prosecutor did? Why do I have to explain what a hood rat did, or one of these people that you mentioned, right? And it is true that there are a lot of people, suburban people, a lot of the drug dealing also that kind of went on in the 90s involved people coming from the suburbs into the hood because it's the cool thing to do, and you sold drugs and you get the women and whatnot. Not all those people were actually, suburban people. I mean, hood people. But the question is there a sense that black people have to account for the behavior of the bottom, and not just the bottom, but bottom behavior of any black person? And you can't just say, look, like, I don't know what you're talking about. That's not me, not my people, not my thing. Why the hell do I have to? Why is this whole black thing just one class? Like, and it's typically then associated with bad. Do you sense that, LAR?
It's a bit of it's one thing where, yes, that's true, but it's not what it was. Like, it's true in the sense of we're all black in America. We're gonna have, some similarities because of being black in America. From the West Coast to the East Coast, there's gonna be some similarities with the unfairness of America. But then there's this other thing where you have black people who want to be black when it's convenient, and we're lacking discernment with them, because it's one of those things where, you know what? Years ago, I saw Al Sharpton preaching at a church I went to. He was talking about a situation that happened, because he'll do this, he'll march and protest for certain people. And he was dealing with a certain person he asked a certain celebrity to help out. And they were like, nah, I'm not, nah, forget all that. I ain't doing all that. Basically gave them, I'm saying, I'm real. I'm a real nigga. I ain't got to do all that. And it was like, okay. And then subsequently that celebrity got in trouble maybe a few years later. And then they went to Al Sharpton and they were like, he's like, look, I need help. I need you to protest, blah, blah, blah. And Al Sharpton responded and said, no, I help black people. You remember, you a real nigga. I ain't helping you. So we as a people, we forget that some people play on that game. Like if I'm winning, I'm also the special one. But if I'm losing, it's because I'm black. See, that's why, to a degree, if you remember back in the day, that was the whole dichotomy with OJ. Like, oh, you black now. Oh, now that they trying to lock you up, now you black. You remember I'm not black, I'm OJ, but now you black. So it was like, okay. So it was the dichotomy of, okay, is the system gonna railroad them, or is the system, or can we actually beat the system? And people thought it was about OJ when he was not guilty, but it was more so about y'all can't win like you used to win. So you see that whole process breaking down time and time again. All of this stuff is just, it's sad to say this, but there are a lot of people in Black America that don't know what being black is anymore. So they're just hopping in and out to a convenient either stereotype or a convenient trope. Whether it's positive or negative.
I got a question.
My bad.
Go ahead.
Is being Black American, is it a tribe? Is being Black American, is it a tribe or is it an experience?
It's an experience. It's not a tribe. You have similar experiences, but you got to understand, like, just like in Africa, if you're on the West Coast, you have a different experience than somebody in the South, in the North, or in the Midwest. You have some similarities because of the racism of America, but you have a completely different experience because you're dealing with different types of people. So it's not a tribe, it's an experience. And a lot of times what I said, the suburban thing is moving out of Black environments, you have more Black people who didn't have some of these experiences. Because I live in the suburbs, and I can tell you one thing about the suburbs: you could get away with a lot of shit you couldn't get away with in the hood. So I can see why Black people could get comfortable.
Good question there, Kaizo. Good question. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the chatting so far. But you could also super chat. That would be much appreciated. That would be much appreciated. Super chat, super sticker, $5, $10, $2. Ladies and gentlemen, okay, we've been talking about this now, and we're gonna start landing the plane. Okay, we're gonna start landing the plane with some closing thoughts here. But just a brief kind of recap as to how we wound up in this situation where we're talking about class and Black America not. And Kaizo asking a good question there about tribe versus experience, and LAR getting into it. We're talking about Fani Willis and Nathan Wade's. The relationship is being aired out for impropriety, right? Fani Willis is a district attorney. She's in charge of prosecuting Trump for the co-conspiring and to defraud the United States, the voters of the United States after the election. Trump is trying to get that case kicked out because of the inappropriateness of the way Fani has carried herself. And she came out, gave a hearing, and she did not present herself well at all. And there are many tropes that could be identified, many of which have been pointed out by Dr. Thunder and LAR. Many tropes that could be identified regarding a certain kind of ratchet behavior. Kind of begs the question as to, I wonder if she's just completely delusional or if she actually has some real power behind her, like she knows that nothing's gonna happen. Is it the mythical power that she thinks she has just because she's a black woman, or maybe there's some real power from the Democratic Party or something like that? But ladies and gentlemen, starting with Kaiser, go ahead and give your closing thoughts on the case, on this idea of class in America, the separation, right? Dr. Thunder kind of got us through a couple of layers of it, and LAR really brought it down into that interpersonal social dynamics, people picking and choosing what it means to be black when it benefits them versus not, right? And all these other types of things. And answering that really it's about an experience, and that perhaps this experience is getting more and more diluted, and things are not holding up as well, if you will, right? But starting with Kaizo and then LAR and then Dr. Thunder, you can close us out. I'm using my battery in my laptop here, so I'm gonna have to. It's about to die on me. But starting with Kaizo, go ahead and give your closing thoughts.
Real quick,
you guys can
just
Go
real
ahead.
quick here. Thank you for the $5 super chat from Mr. Rogers Neighborhood saying, "Black pride and powers is what's at stake." Yeah, definitely. Go ahead, Kaizo.
Yes. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, shout out to the sponsor of the stream. I think with this whole case, I do believe it should be dismissed. At least the attorney general, district attorney's office should be dismissed from this case. And if they find someone else, hopefully they look at they review the charges, they review everything from the beginning and make the right decision. This is obviously political. When it comes to Fani Willis, I think she's just kind of showing a certain type of attitude, ratchetism, right? She's accusing Trump of racketeering, right? Well, she's ratcheteering, so hey, maybe they deserve to be in the same bed at this point. So, yeah. So, in regards to that, I think, we're going to get to see the ruling very soon. The judge said, they're not going to rule just yet. They're going to take a little bit more time. But once we have that, then we'll know how to move forward. But in terms of her, I do think that she's missing a lot in so many different conduct aspects. She could have resigned willingly at any time and not lose anything in this case. But she refuses to resign, yet everything's been aired out, and that's kind of the lack of candor. So yes, I do believe that aspect is there. Regarding culture, Black American culture, I am an outsider, right? I can speak from my perspective as an African. The reason I asked Elear that question is because Elear I say in Kenya, over here, we have all sorts of people, right? Being Kenyan is not an experience. It's a tribe, meaning we got ratchet people. We kind of call them low class people. They live in Kibera, and we have people like me who don't live in Kibera. We don't see each other as the same. So I don't know how that's going to sort of interfere with the whole Black experience thing.
Yeah. All right, LAR, what say you?
I'm going to say this because I was in Uganda a few months ago. They say Uganda and Kenya are the two drunkest countries in Africa. So I already know you come from a ratchet background. Don't try it. Now, the interesting thing is, when it comes to this type of stuff, I reiterate this. When I see these situations happen, I see Black people in the quote-unquote position of power. And for some odd reason, the stupid ones think they can emulate what their white co-workers or other people do. And the reason why I say that is because you've seen it too many times. Because they'll because you hear it. If they put the pressure on too much, they've been doing this stuff for years. And it's like, yo, how don't you know it's not going to go well for you? Like, I could go for a little back to Jesse Jackson Jr. and Blagojevich. Jesse Jackson thought he was doing the same thing that people were doing before him. But guess what? You're the Black dude doing it. It's not going to work. Then you got the white dude locked up because if it was a white on white transaction, it would have worked just fine. So it becomes this issue time and time again that if you know you're about to embark on, let's just say this would have been a foundational career building journey. Guess what you need to do? Don't have a clean background. Don't do anything while this case is going on that could get you jammed up. That is very simple. You know who had to learn that lesson the hard way? What is the white guy in the OJ trial? Mark Furman.
Yeah.
Don't do anything stupid while the case is going on. So this is just another, and don't have a funky attitude when people, because this is not in all honesty, this wouldn't be a big deal if she didn't have a bad attitude. What happened? We wound up sleeping together. Well, we spent a lot of time together. We kind of slept together. That's what happened. But if you got to do all this extra stuff, now it looks like you're using your job as a sugar mama to get some wood because you can't get it on your own. So I'm gonna leave it at that. I'm gonna leave it.
Yeah. So I did want to define a couple terms, and ratcheteering. That's a good one there. But in the chat, Hoodservatives in the chat, and he says this here that I want to talk about for just a second, which I think is useful for this conversation. So black used to actually mean something specific, and that's in a few different ways. I mean, it used to have some depth culturally and with respect to, dare I say, even a tribe, even if it was a forced tribe, a tribe made up of tribes that don't really go together, but that due to the legal confines of the scenario that they found themselves in, they sort of had to only deal with each other. So that kind of scenario. And that's not really a tribe in the sense of that we think of what a tribe is. Because, when people say, hey, I finally found my tribe, what they're saying is that they finally found people that share values, that share maybe a particular love of a particular discipline, or that have, a certain worldview, or that have tended to make sense or ask the same kind of questions. Their tribe, they feel like they're home. They feel like they don't have to act like, they understand stuff that they don't understand. They don't have to, keep it real as a sort of, obligatory, response to appear to be something or to appear to belong to something, but rather they have found their tribe. This is who they are, right? That's not and never has really been what Black America has been. It's never been that, because it's always been a forcing of putting things that don't go together and say, look, all you undesirables, you go over there and just stay over there. It was that sort of a thing. Now here's something I want to say about black. So black used to mean something in particular. Black was a replacement of the word Negro. And Negro was sort of rejected because it seemed to sound a little bit too much like another N word. So I think that people sort of rejected that word. But colored, that was another sort of word that wasn't necessarily intended to be a pejorative, but just a even if though it was sort of crass and crude, sort of, description of folks that were not light complected, were not European in ancestry, and in particular were descendants of slavery. So, but Negro gave way to black. Black became the preferred description. But understand, we're talking about American descendants of slavery, foundational Black Americans. So in that context, at least you understood what that meant. And even though the community has been in sort of disarray, and especially once forced integration hit, did not resemble in any way what it once resembled and potential that it may have had if the laws didn't change when they did. If state-sanctioned terror wasn't the way to come in and destroy momentum that we were creating, So, but now what happened was, since black, okay, well, what is black? Well, black is evil and white is good. And if you look in, this kind of thing, this sort of gives way to Jesse Jackson and his African American, his appeal to call us African American. But that still had a very specific thing. We're not talking about Jamaicans. We're not talking about Nigerians. We're not talking about, folks that come from some other place by way of willful immigration. Okay. We're not talking about that. Now, that's not to say that there couldn't be some things in common, but that's not what we're talking about. Black actually means a particular thing. It used to, but the politicians got a hold of it, and they found that they could use the same term to seem to create an umbrella for all people that, in particular, African diaspora. The problem with that is that our issues are vastly different. And so you can't pinpoint the specific things that are needed for those communities by creating this huge blanket. And you have what Tariq Nasheed calls tethers. And in these tethers, often is the case that they're willing to take advantage of things that have actually been set up for the sake of African Americans. But if any bad optics or images take place, of Black Americans, of African Americans, then all of a sudden now I'm Nigerian. I'm not Black. I'm Nigerian. I'm not Black. I'm Jamaican. I'm not Black. I'm Caribbean. I'm not Black. Then this is when this starts to happen. And so it's a divisive sort of issue and topic, but politicians have intentionally muddied the water for the sake of political gain. They gain something by being able to speak ambiguously. They like to be able to be ambiguous by saying the first Black vice president. They like to be able to speak ambiguously when they say the first female Black Supreme Court justice. They enjoy that ability because it seems to be delivering on promises that they should have delivered on generations ago to the Negro community. But it's not doing that at all because they have grafted in folks that are not from that community at all. And though the Black community is not monolithic, the Negro community I'm talking about, and is not really a tribe, and as LER said, is more of an experience, it's even less likely that the diversity in the Black community would ever be served if we are not willing to make the distinction about Black versus Nigerian, or black versus Jamaican, or black versus pick your location. Okay, so that I just think that that's an important point, and people would be like, "Whoa, hey, why does that matter? None of that stuff matters." Well, it matters if you're ever going to actually be able to get deliverables, actually get, something positive out of the political system. Then you have to name your community and then be very specific about what it is that you're asking for. Okay? That's what everybody else does. And that is our time. Thanks, folks, for being here. And we'll see you next week, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, for another riveting episode of Case Closed, the highest level conversation on the most relevant topics in this space. Peace.